All right, JC. Doesn't really feel like I'm talking to a freshman because just watching you on the field last season, you were a very mature player. Your game obviously was one of the more elite, to use that term, as far as somebody who's coming in as a true freshman. Just talk about how you got to your level. I know you come from NFL bloodlines. You've got a lot of family history as far as that's concerned. How did that help just kind of contribute to the player that you are?
Well, one, I think the success of my freshman season mainly came from the coaches, just developing me and getting me in there early and helping me learn the plays. And like you said, it also comes from my family background, just having football around me since a young kid. And it just all stuck together with me, and it helped me throughout my freshman season.
I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I've had a chance to watch a lot of players come through this program, and one of the players that pops out of my mind is a guy named Cliff Matthews. And one of the things that was always talked about with Cliff is when you watch practice film, game films like that, this guy was always on top of it, always the first guy back, always running wherever he went. Now we're hearing the same things about you, and that attitude that's kind of working its way into other guys. Right. Do you notice that about yourself? Is that something that you just do, or is that just something that you expect of yourself?
It's more something I just do, and I don't really force it. It's just been the way I guess the way I'm tuned since I was born. And just I feel like if you're gonna do something, you might as well do it 110%, or you're doing it for no reason. And that's just the attitude I take on every day.
Some guys are really, really into what's going on social media. I know you have a pretty decent social media presence as far as that. And I noticed some of the things that you respond to is when guys put out their top cornerbacks in the league, and maybe your name's not on there.
Yeah.
What does that do for a guy like you when you see that, knowing that, hey, are you kind of like a quiet storm? Is that internal motivation for you?
It is. I mean, I think that would be like that for anybody. And I just feel like if you turn on the tape, it's really self-explanatory. But like Coach Muschamp always says, I'm not really too big in the preseason predictions of All-American list or whatever. And that whatever happens. Just go out there and play your best ball, and the chips fall where they may.
When you got a dad like Joe Horn, who myself, I grew up watching, I was a Saints fan. I remember watching the whole telephone and the goalpost thing like that. I know you've heard that story probably a billion times, but, having a dad like that who's a very dynamic personality, who doesn't mind ruffling some feathers, so to speak.
Right.
But you're kind of on the opposite side. I think maybe the only time I saw you have any type of emotional outburst was at Kentucky when, with the penalty. But, Muschamp's immediate response to that was, I would rather have that than a guy I have to pull along.
Right.
What do you do to kind of contain yourself that makes you maybe a little different than your dad?
I think that's the reason I am the way I am, just because my dad is the total opposite. And sometimes, I talk to him about it, you don't even got to respond to certain stuff. But, my dad is who he is. He going to speak his mind, and that's not a bad thing all the time. So, but I guess it's just the way I was brought up and tuned, and that's the way I am.
I'm not sure if you've had a chance to really kind of check out some stats. I was doing some number crunching myself, and your season and Stephon Gilmore's freshman season were about as even as two seasons that I've ever seen. Right. So you think about a guy like Stephon Gilmore, and I'll be honest, just kind of watching, he had his struggles. Right. Last season, I don't think I really saw a lot of the same struggles out of you that we saw out of him. But when you think about a guy like that who's been to the top, and you can kind of see that you're kind of on that same level that he was, how does that feel to you? Do you really kind of shoot for something like that, or are you just kind of wanting to do your own trail?
I would say it's really my own trail, just because I can't really compare myself to Gilmore. He's one of the top cornerbacks, if not the top cornerback in the National Football League right now. And I just feel like it's kind of disrespectful to even compare myself to him with the little work that I put in. But, we'll see as time goes and how my career goes and how they match up. But he's definitely somebody I look up to and watch film of all the time. So, great guy to be compared to.
Talk about the Clemson game last year. I know there was a lot of ifs, kind of, is he going to be able to play? Is he not going to be able to play ultimately? I know I was standing there, saw you come out of the locker room, and you hadn't had a chance to dress out. When you watched that game and you saw some things happen that you probably could have prevented and kept that game closer than it was, what does that do for a guy like you? Because obviously you're a major competitor, having to stand on the sideline. How frustrating was that for you?
It still is at me today. Me and Izzy was in there watching film, I think 2 or 3 days ago, and I was just talking to him about how bad I wanted to play that game, and I don't even like to watch it on film sometimes, just because, I was probably 60, 70, 60, 65%, and I couldn't get out there and contribute. And like you said, as a competitor, going against the #1 team in the nation, that's just something you want to do. Like match up, see how you match up against. You know, they have great receivers over at Clemson. You just want to see how you match up against them. It's really a competing thing.
And my last question for you. A lot of guys like to be team first guys, but I know a lot of y'all also kind of keep track of those personal stats. What would you like to see from yourself statistic-wise this season if you had to kind of make a prediction on what you want to see by the time this season wraps up?
Well, like I said, I'm not really big into predictions just because you still got to go out there and lay your play out there. And I'm just trying to be the best player I can be week in and week out. I want to be a reliable guy with my teams where my team knows that Jaycee gonna do his job this week. The coach knows Jaycee gonna do his job this week. That's the only expectations I'm concerned about.